Life Audio.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
We want families to come here and gain insightful strategies that empower them to successfully teach diverse learners at home.
Hosted by founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, Peggy Ployer.
Our goal is that these powerful weekly conversations will boost your confidence to cultivate the best at-home learning environment for your student.
For more homeschool resources, go to spedhomeschool.com. You're listening to Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer. We'll start the conversation with Peggy and her guests next.
The best-selling illustrated Bible for kids and teens, the Action Bible, is now better than ever. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is an interactive Bible specifically created for kids and teens ages 7 to 15. The Faith in Action Edition is designed to engage young readers in God's Word through hundreds of vividly illustrated Bible stories in chronological order with activities and games. Readers will grow in God's Word by using QR codes, providing free access to over 2,000 devotionals, hundreds of prayers, character stories, teaching videos, maps, timelines, and much more. Additionally, the Action Bible Faith in Action Edition allows readers to explore the major themes of the Bible like courage, faith, hope, love, service, trust, and wisdom. Each theme provides practical advice on how to live out God's Word. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is the best interactive Bible you can purchase for your child or teen. Purchase your copy today at Sam's Club, Barnes & Noble, or Amazon.
Hi, I'm Beckett Cook, host of The Beckett Cook Show. I lived as a gay man in Hollywood for many, many years until I had a radical encounter with Jesus 13 years ago. Since then, I've gotten my master's degree in seminary and published a book called A Change of Affection. On my podcast, The Beckett Cook Show, I sit down with fascinating Christian scholars and thinkers to address the lies of the culture and bring the biblical truth to bear on those lies. To start listening now, go to lifeaudio.com or search for The Beckett Cook Show on your favorite podcasting platform.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com. Here's Peggy Ployer.
Today, our topic is don't throw out the books if your student refuses to read. I know many of you may be there right now, and our special guest, return guest, is Julia Nalle. Welcome back, Julie.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad to have you here. This is such a good topic, and I know Julie has 40 different ideas that she's going to share with you on how to help the refusing reader to get down with opening books and hopefully enjoying them too. So I'm excited to hear all that you have to share. If you're joining us live, just know that you can put your questions, your comments in the feed wherever you're watching from, and we would love to include those in our conversation. We had one submission, and it was just a general submission of a question, which is the topic we're going to cover today. And Lisa had said, how do I help a child who has no desire to read? And Julie had said, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. So we're excited to answer your question, Lisa, and to help you find some strategies for doing that. So Julie, as we're getting started, I would love for you to just share a little bit with our audience about you. And I know you have some slides, and that's kind of baked into there. So would you like me to pull those up and dive in? All right, great. So I love this title.
Don't throw the books out with the bathwater when your struggling twiddler hates, struggles, refuses to read. And I was so excited when I found that picture because it was just like, that was really good.
Yeah, yes. And if you're listening on the podcast, it's just an old-fashioned tub with books just going right into the river. Heading upstream without the child or with... yes, that's awesome. So yes, and you're going to explain much more about that twiddler word as we go along. So hold on for that one. So is this your family?
Yep. These are 3 of my 5. My husband and I have 5 children. These are our 3 youngest, and they keep us young and feeling a tad old at the same time. They're all adopted from Ukraine. Awesome. So they're my 3 little Ukrainians. John and Aaron, the two boys, just graduated from high school this year. Like 3 weeks ago, we just had a graduation. So that was pretty fun.
Congratulations. That's so exciting.
That's a major milestone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my husband and I, we write a history literature curriculum, and it's based on both the classical and Charlotte Mason approaches of studying history in order and immersing our children in living books as they engage with the history. And our curriculum is called BiblioPlan, which is book plan. Biblio means book in Latin.
Oh, yes. Very cool. And it's a combination, you said, of Charlotte Mason and classical. How does that work together?
So we follow the classical method that's rigorous, wanting our kids to grow up to be really critical thinkers. We want them to have a firm grasp of history. We want an education that's rich in the classics. We want them to understand what they believe and to be able to articulate as they get older what they believe to those around them. So we want them to just have a really thorough understanding of what they believe, using history and the other disciplines as their basis.
Got it. Very nice. And Francesca is watching from San Diego, California. Welcome to the show. Very cool. That's a great combination of those 2 methodologies.
So with the Charlotte Mason, we believe that kids need time to grow and space to grow. So we provide a curriculum that is easy to adapt and very child friendly. So that would be on the next slide.
Yeah.
It encourages creative thinking. It allows for adapting lessons to individual needs. It lets families pick and choose what works for them. And it's very hands-on and easy for mom to teach. So it's both a literature curriculum, history literature, but it's also our philosophy is that kids learn not just by reading and studying, but also by doing. And so that's kind of where we get the balance between the Charlotte Mason classical approach.
That's very cool. Yeah, and so many kids need a combination just in order to really interact with learning. Very cool. So what are these? These are a bunch of books, I recognize many of them.
They're favorites. Both philosophies of classical and Charlotte Mason focus on the living book idea, and that's the root of the education. They both focus on studying history in order from ancient history to medieval to early modern to modern. And they both have students learning history in order. And it's the best, and they're doing history and literature together. So as I'm studying a history book, I'm reading the literature that matches up with it. And which is personally the way I think that's the best way to do history literature. And it just brings books alive. And so that's kind of our philosophy.
Got it. Well, I got a question for you on that, Julie. It's from Wisconsin. Diamond Ski watching on YouTube said, I'm planning to use BiblioPlan Medieval this year with Mystery of History as a spine. Would getting the BiblioPlan craft book be overkill, 7th and 8th grade?
No, we just came out with brand new craft books. Our craft books are chock full of really fun history. And there's lots of little history vignettes inside the craft book. So even if you actually don't do the activity, reading the vignettes teaches you a lot of history. So, and it's not just crafts, it's food and games and just all kinds of fun things to do with your kids. And it's K to 12. So every book has like over 250 ideas in it. So not overkill. It's a great purchase. And the medieval one just came out like a couple months ago, brand new.
Well, that's exciting. Very cool. Great question, Diamond Ski.
So I have 5 kids. My oldest son loved books. He loved for us to read to him. He loved books so much that when he was a baby, we had to actually put his books on timeout because he would constantly bring them to us to the point where it was just that we couldn't get anything done. So we'd put the book on, we would read it and then put it on top of the refrigerator. And by the end of the day, the whole refrigerator was stacked with books. And then the next day we'd bring them back down and we would start over again. And we did that for a long time because he was just such a book fiend. And so you would think that, because he was such a book lover when he was little, that we would never have a minute's trouble with him when he got older. But that wasn't exactly how it happened.
Wow. Yeah. Diamond Ski also commented to you. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear your perspective on the craft books. So just wanted you to know that.
Right.
So
we put my son in a small Christian school when he started kindergarten. And it was a really strict school where every child was required to have their feet planted on the floor and their hands folded. And even though he was already reading, they put him through the reading program there at the school, and he was required to read every one of the books from the beginning books on. And he was really bored out of his mind. The amount of books he had to read kept him from having time to enjoy pleasure reading. So that was huge. The amount of books he had to read kept him from having the time or desire to read for pleasure. Taking pleasure reading away from a child causes them to become a twiddler.
Ah,
one of the causes.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. After a word from our sponsor, we'll dive back into this conversation. The best-selling illustrated Bible for kids and teens, the Action Bible, is now better than ever. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is an interactive Bible specifically created for kids and teens ages 7 to 15. The Faith in Action Edition is designed to engage young readers in God's Word through hundreds of vividly illustrated Bible stories in chronological order with activities and games. Readers will grow in God's Word by using QR codes, providing free access to over 2,000 devotionals, hundreds of prayers, character stories, teaching videos, maps, timelines, and much more. Additionally, the Action Bible Faith in Action Edition allows readers to explore the major themes of the Bible like courage, faith, hope, love, service, trust, and wisdom. Each theme provides practical advice on how to live out God's Word. The Action Bible Faith in Action Edition is the best interactive Bible you can purchase for your child or teen. Purchase your copy today at Sam's Club, Barnes & Noble, or Amazon.
Is life feeling chaotic? I get it. I'm Rachel Wojo, host of the Untangling Life podcast. Don't miss the passionate encouragement and faith-based resources you need to help you clear your head and calm your heart. As Shell says, it feels like Rachel always knows what I need to hear. She keeps it real and is so humble. Her podcast is just the cherry on top. Enjoy Untangling Life with Rachel Wojo on lifeaudio.com or your favorite podcast app now.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by Sped Homeschool. Go to spedhomeschool.com to get resources and support for teaching your unique learner at home.
And what is a twiddler?
A twiddler is my word. This is a Julie word.
Okay.
It's one who is capable of reading, but they resist it. They twiddle around instead of reading. They think a fidget spinner will hold greater interest than actually opening up that book. They think that Minecraft has more appeal than a book. They're the one that takes the book and throws it across the room like a Frisbee.
Right.
They're the one who stares at the pages and has no clue what's on them. A twiddler resists reading. A twiddler struggles to read because they just hate it so much. Reading is not a pleasure for them. My school burned my son out.
Right.
My son's school with boring books and provided no time to pleasure read books that would have held his attention. In their effort to make my son an excellent reader, they actually turned him off of reading. It turned him into a twiddler.
Right. Yeah. And that's in all good, intentions, but yet that's where it went. Yeah.
So when we started homeschooling him, I wanted to renew his love for books. So I took the reading program and I threw it out, and I started showering him with living books, which is what we came to. That's when we started doing the whole living book. We went classical, and he began to blossom. He loved the new books. And since we were doing history in order, the books that he read were related to the history we were doing, and it was the perfect balance for him. It just worked so well. My second son, who was coming along behind him, is the one of my 5 children who is not a twiddler. He loved books from the beginning. He never resisted them. He would just read anywhere, wherever you gave him a book. So I had one twiddler for my 2 oldest and one that was not. But the classical model, the Charlotte Mason model, worked for both of them.
Yeah. For those people that don't know what a living book is, can you briefly explain that?
So a living book is a book that comes alive. The children breathe life. It's a book that they can immerse in, and the characters in it make them feel alive, make them enter into the story. So when they're reading it, it's kind of drawing them in. It's a life book. It touches their heart. It stimulates their brain. It gets them thinking, as opposed to just junk, or as opposed to just a book that's boring or mindless. Right. Living books bring life to a child.
Great description of that. Thank you.
So our first son we adopted was 6 when we brought him home, and he had never seen a book before in his entire life. He had never held a book, never had one. But despite that, he loved to sit and look at the books and have us read to him. It took him a long time to learn to read. It was a process, but he learned, and it was pretty amazing considering where he came from, to the fact that he just graduated from high school and is reading on a 7th or 8th grade reading level, which is like pretty amazing. Yeah, he doesn't always understand what he reads, and that is a twiddler problem. What causes twiddling is children don't have comprehension. They don't understand what they're reading, and that causes them to not enjoy the book. Sometimes he reads too fast, and that's another problem. Reading too fast isn't going to allow you to really enjoy or immerse in the book because you're just kind of skim reading it. He has auditory processing disorders and some other issues that affect his reading. Yes. So his ability to grasp what he is reading is affected by some of his disabilities. So he has twiddling in a different direction as my older son does.
Yeah. So do you have any suggestions? Diamond Ski also asked, that she said, I think both my kids fit in this twiddler category, but now that it's summer, they're resistant to reading anything. Any suggestions for... Hang
on, because I got 40 ideas of what we're going to do in a little bit.
That's awesome. So yes.
Hang on to your question, because I'm going to get to that. So the second son we adopted, he's the one who would rather just do anything else but read to him. He's never enjoyed listening to us read. He's a huge twiddler. Really? He learned to read, but he's way behind grade level. He finds books overwhelming. He can't read fluently. He's 100% twiddler, and much of this session revolves around him. Wow. He's the one that would throw the books out with the bathwater. He's the one who groans when we give him a gift and it's a book. It's like, really not my thing,
Oh yes, absolutely.
And then just my little girl, she's special needs. So she loves books. She loves for us to read to her, but she has not quite reached the point of being able to read them herself. But she does like to read, and I can't wait for the day when she is able to open that book up and actually read it. She has some autistic. She has epilepsy. So. Oh,
okay. Well, thank you for sharing that background, Julie, because I think a lot of times our audience goes, well, how does this person that you're speaking to really understand where I'm at? And I hope you understand that Julie gets your story, your struggles, and that her suggestions coming up are really coming from these battles internally in her own homeschool and helping her own kids learn how to embrace books at their own level. And like you said, it's a process. I think we all think it's just we're gonna have some magic button and it's gonna get us there.
So Charlotte Mason said 100 years ago that the most common and monstrous defect in the education of the day is that children fail to acquire the habit of reading. The habit, not the ability to read,
Habit.
because a lot of our kids do read or can read, but the habit of reading, and it's a defect in the education of the day. It's the ability to acquire the habit. I had one child with the ability to acquire the habit of reading, and the rest of mine struggled with that habit.
Yeah. And habits take a long time to build. And we forget that. We just expect that this is just something that's just going to magically happen.
Yep. And here's another quote from Charlotte Mason. Children must have books, living books. The books are the best are not too good for them. Anything less than the best is not good enough. And if it is needful to exercise economy, let go everything that belongs to soft and luxurious living before letting go the duty of supplying the books and the frequent changes of books, which are necessary for the constant stimulation of the child's intellectual life. I love that quote. In my own words, children need to be surrounded by a large supply of books, the best living books out there. If money is an issue, then give up eating or cable or TV or the internet or other luxuries so you can fill their world with books. Implicit in both of those statements is that education without living books is not education. We need our kids to read.
Yeah. Yeah. We would live at the library. It's a cheap way to get lots of books.
Yeah. So I love books. It's in books where we learn to think and process. It's books increase our vocabulary. Books make us better writers. Books make us better communicators. Books help us to understand the world around us. Books quench our thirst for knowledge. Books bring us delight and pleasure. They make us cry, laugh. They help us to relax. They inspire. Books make us angry. Books bring on revolutions. Books stimulate creativity. Books teach. Books challenge. And I could just go on and on and on with all the things that books do in our lives.
Absolutely. Yes. I know I've got my stack ready for my vacation.
So many of you agree. You're like, I agree with all of that. I agree. We have our house. We've got books in our house, and we've got that library card. And you would drop everything if there was a library sale going on or a book sale. You are book lovers. You're going to agree with what I just said.
Yeah.
But what happens when there's a twiddler in the room? That twiddler who's knocking over our bookshelves and destroying all our theories and all of our Charlotte Mason sweet quotes and conceptions about books. The child who struggles to read, who hates to read, who resists the habit of reading. The child who's moving and grooving to their own beat, twiddling away their days, sidestepping all your attempts. Their hands are active, their feet are moving, their body's dancing out the door as far away from that book as you can get. And you're stuck.
Yeah.
You believe, like I do, that books are vital, and you want to teach your child using living books, but the twiddler in the room is making it really hard.
Absolutely. I've had one of those myself.
So if you're listening, it's because you have a twiddler too, and you're looking for help. I don't have all the answers. I really don't. But I can share from experience and from dealing with my own twiddlers how to maybe at least tame them a little bit. How do you follow the living book, classical Charlotte Mason style of reading while studying history when your child is a twiddler? I'm going to share 40 ways that allow you to follow the living book model. The focus is not on a child who can't read. That's going to have to be in another session, Peggy. A child who can't read, but a child who resists reading. And everything I share is based around my personal philosophy of history, doing history classically and reading the books along with your history. Yes. But you don't have to limit yourself to just that mentality. You can use it. If you're not using either of those philosophies, you can still use a lot of these ideas wherever you go.
Great. Yes. And, we never have all the answers, but you have a lot of answers. And it should give parents a lot of things, a lot of ideas to go off of and to get started with. And like you said, even if they aren't using either of these teaching methodologies, a lot of these suggestions should be able to apply to whatever methodology you're using. We were talking ahead of time of the show, even if, unschooling, whatever books, your child is using or you would like them to read, it would be helpful.
Okay, so my number one is that you're going to have to change your expectations.
Oh, so true. Yes.
So all your dreams and notions of how you're going to have this perfect book-filled style of learning needs to be laid aside. You got your dreams, but now the reality is going to have to come in. The perfect living book model is going to have to be adjusted to a different model for your twiddler. And that might mean shedding a few tears, changing your dream for them. What you want for them and what may be realistic may not match. And that's okay. You have to give up your dream, but you're not totally giving up your dream. You don't have to throw out Charlotte Mason living books, but you're just going to have to adapt a little bit. So the first one is just change your expectations. You're not going to get everything that you want when it comes to your twiddlers.
Yeah. And I found I had to change my goals too. What I really wanted out of them reading books, because, do I want them to get a book done, or do I want them to love what they're reading and to actually absorb it? And when I finally mentally figured that out, it was a huge revelation for me, but a huge relief for my child.
Yep.
So yes, those expectations are so important.
Number 2, unplug the electronics. And it's very practical, and it's the hardest bit of advice I have to give. Electronics are these brain-sucking, mind-numbing, reader-robbing devices that steal your child's joy of reading. It stole my first one's reading away. That was, besides boring books, once the electronics entered our home, it was a battle. It was a battle. How can a book compete with the fast and amazing images of an electronic? Electronics should never be a reward for doing work. It should not be, okay, if you do this, then you will get to play this, because you're stealing your kid right there, right away, from thinking about whatever they're doing. Even if they are reading the book, they're not thinking about the book.
Oh,
Children that are electronic focused are going to be looking at that book and thinking about how they're going to play that game later on that day, and how they're going to beat their foes, and how they're going to go through the door, and whatever they're doing in that game, that's what they're going to be thinking about. The hours spent on devices mean that kids lose creative hours outside, and they just don't want to read. And so unplugging the electronics is a huge deal. I get it. I deal with it. One of the things that we do as a rule of thumb is that from Monday till Friday, we don't do any electronic. We don't do games. We don't do TV. We don't do anything. And so that school time, even in the summer, we are very, very limiting. So even if we watch one TV movie a day and that's it, and we do very limited time in the summer, so that it's not something that's going to rule our lives and rule our family. But during the school year, nothing Monday through Friday. And kids fuss at first, but after a while they get used to that.
Right.
And, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we give them a little bit, and so we're done school, we're going to go play. We're done school, we're going to go be creative. We're done school, we might want to pick up a book if the electronic is not there. So,
yeah, absolutely, that's a great suggestion.
So number 3, if your curriculum gives you the freedom of choice, and ours does, let them choose the books. Give your child from even an early age, let them choose the books, but especially for your middle and high schoolers.
Oh, yeah.
Kids often balk at reading because they actually don't trust the books that you're choosing. I didn't. When I was growing up, all the books that my teacher said I had to read, those are the ones that I didn't want to read because they were assigned reading. But when I chose the book, that's when I would devour it. So if you have the option of giving them a book list and saying, okay, here's the book list for this, like in our curriculum is set up in units. So there's like 15 choices. Which books are interesting to you? Which books would you like to read? And give them the choice, because a lot of times choices clicks in their brain, and it gives them just a completely different perspective and a desire to read.
Absolutely. Yes. And I found even that sometimes my kids would pick harder books than I was even going to assign them when I allowed them that choice. But they then followed up and read them.
Number 4 is as a history literature curriculum, study the history first, then read the book. So knowing the history in the book goes a long way for the child in comprehending the story and reading many of the words. So if you're doing a history literature curriculum and you give them the book ahead of time, then a lot of times they're going to not be as clued in. But when you do the history and you go, okay, we're going to learn about World War I, and we're going to talk about, whatever you're talking about, and then you hand them the book, that just inspires them. It's so much more like life-giving for them. And that was true for all of my twiddlers. They loved the history-related books, and they loved reading them after we had done the history because it just brought the history to life.
Exactly. Yes. It made me like history all of a sudden, too, as somebody who hated it growing up. So, Mom, you might embrace history as well.
So whatever book you want your child to do, most of the time they have a dust jacket with it if you've gotten it from the library, if you've bought it new. The dust jacket is going to have a lot of times a picture, but it's going to also have a synopsis of the book with them. Read that to your child. Have them look at the picture. Try to just study the picture on that dust jacket. Why is this picture on here? What do you think is going to happen based on that picture? Help them think through what the book is going to be about. Give them some real props as you study that dust jacket and as you talk about it. Dust jackets are designed to draw children into the book. And for our twiddlers, it's a great way to spark their interest. So it's just a simple little thing. But don't just hand a child a book, say, hey, let's stop for a minute. Look at what the artist drew on this book and discuss it with them. And then read through that dust jacket. Read about the author. Give them some props for getting and drawing into the book.
Absolutely. I never even thought of doing something like that. But you're right. They spend a lot of time putting into that, the artwork and the description. So use it.
So if you have a child that has struggles in vocabulary or that they're going to hit some concepts in that book, it's always good to pre-read it. Even if it's just going to be the chapter, for you to pre-read ahead, to kind of where are the potholes going to be here? Right. Which area in this chapter is going to be a problem for my child? They're not going to understand. I love to read my kids' books. I love to read the books that they're reading. So I tend to always I'll get the book and I'll read it ahead of them so that I have an idea. I just like to read. And so for me to sit there and read a book that they're going to read is pleasure reading for me. Not everybody can do that, but that way I can give them props for understanding and for teaching concepts. Now you can't sometimes do the whole book, but you could, if you're signing a chapter for that day, look through it, figure out what words are going to cause your child to stumble and go through it, because then when they hit that word, it's not going to make them go, oh, I hate this, because now they have some helps for doing that.
Absolutely. And sometimes there's the audiobook, and so that's what I tend to go to versus, my kids reading. And so at least I have the ability to plug it in my ear and get it done.
So big one, slow down. And none of these are in any sort of order. These 40 things are just not in any kind of order. They're as I thought of them.
Yeah.
Slow down in your weekly schedule and in your yearly schedule. The beauty of homeschooling, and that's what you get to do, is that you can go at your own pace. You're not bound to do a year's worth of curriculum in a year.
Exactly.
It takes you a year and a half or 2 years, take it. Just slow down and enjoy it. And then number 2 or number 8, decrease the number of books to read. Absolutely. In our curriculum, we have 6 units a year. So there's 6 units in our year. Each unit is about 6 weeks long. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but that's the average. Mm-hmm. So a kid like me who loved books, I could have read a book a week. I could have read 2 books a week and just never be satisfied.
Right.
But twiddlers, you can't expect a twiddler to read a book a week. That's going to be way too much. A typical student that's not a voracious reader is going to be maybe 2 to 3 books in a unit, or less, depending upon how big the book is. Right. I tell my families with twiddlers that 1 book a unit is like a win. My twiddler who hated books, if I could get him to do 6 books in a year, I felt like I had won the lottery. That was a big deal. 6 books It may not seem like a lot to you and your expectations are so much more, but for a twiddler, that's a huge accomplishment. So
Absolutely.
go just decrease the number of books they have to read.
Right. That stress that they feel, it just shuts them down when you start getting those expectations higher than they think they can reach. And so that is such a good, and, eventually they may get to that point, but to start there and to expect them, it really does make it a lot more difficult to build that habit and for them to be confident.
So number 9, pick easier books. In a literature history curriculum, the focus is to read high-quality living books to go along with what is being studied in history. So in whatever curriculum you're doing, our natural tendency is to go, well, my child is in 4th grade, so they must read 4th grade books, right? You don't have to do that. Drop down a grade level or 2. The focus is on content, not quantity. So the focus is allowing your child to immerse, and often those easier books are just as history rich as the grade level ones. So if you can go, okay, well, my 4th grader would be happier in a 3rd or a 2nd grade reader, go for it. Just drop them down. Don't make them or don't press them into that we must read on grade level. My one child, way below, but the books that we pick for him are the ones that he enjoys. And so, you have to go with where they are.
Absolutely.
Number 10, and this is a really important one because, in the last slide I said just have them do 6 books in a unit, but
Right.
This is how you can get them to do more. You go out and you find picture books and easy readers for them to just enjoy. You get a basket. And This is what Charlotte Mason said. You change things up. You put things out. You get a basket and you fill it with picture books and easy readers, and you don't say a word.
Right.
And every 3 or 4 weeks, you just change out those books. And these are not required reading. These are just fun pleasure reading. The type of books that have no strings attached and that they're just going to absolutely draw a child in. They're going to look at that and go, oh, that's a picture book on World War I. And it doesn't have a lot of words, but it has a lot of pictures, but it has a few words. And mom might sit down and read this one with me. It's just going to pull them into that book. And it's going to excite them, and it's going to just give them enthusiasm. A few years ago, at our co-op, a family was getting rid of their entire book collection because they were moving the whole family to Italy.
Oh, yeah. I had to do that when we moved to Texas.
They gifted all of those books to the people at the co-op. So they just brought them in boxes and boxes and boxes. It was a huge family, hundreds and hundreds of books. And it was a feeding fest. And I'm just in there grabbing with everybody. And I grabbed a couple of the science type encyclopedia books that are just pictures full and rich.
Right.
And I brought them home and I just put them on the counter. And my boys came and they came walking by and they saw the books and they were just went crazy. They grabbed them and they took them upstairs and they put them in their bed. And then that night they were showing me the pictures and so excited about these books. And there was no strings attached. It was just pure. You could do that at the library. Grab a bunch, fill a basket, go back a couple weeks later, fill a basket, and not put strings on it. They don't have to read them. But hey, if they do, that's a cool thing.
Absolutely. We lived in a small town for a while, and I gave the librarian the topic we were studying, and she would actually just order books for me every week and have them there when I arrived. And that was so neat that, I could have these curated books and just walk home with a big pile every week and then return them the next week.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So be selective and wise. Know your child and pick the books that they're going to love. You have to think about your child. Are they going to like this book? Is this a girl book and my boy is not going to like it? Is this a boy book and my girl is not going to like it? Is this book about science and my child is not tuned into science? Is this book about, whatever? We have to be selective. And we need to pick books that bring out their emotions. If they love adventure, then go in that direction. If they love drama, then go in that direction. So think about them. What is going to stimulate them? What is going to draw them into that living book? That's why I like book lists that are flexible. So you're picking the books instead of somebody else picking the books for you, because you know your children. I don't.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yes. And they do. They can stir so many emotions and lead to so many good conversations too.
Okay, so this is a fun one because you're going to assign their readings that they're left with cliffhangers.
Oh.
So when back in the olden days, writers would put their stories in a magazine, and they would only tell part of the story, and you would get the magazine and you would read it, and then you would be left with the cliffhanger, which would make you want to buy the magazine so that you can get the rest of the story. And doing that with our kids is just as good. You sign that you're going to read just this much, and here's the cliffhanger, and then that's all done. Try it again tomorrow. Put the book away, and then it's going to make them wonder what's going to happen.
Right.
What is going to happen? Anticipation is a huge tool for getting children hooked. So if you're assigning their reading, try to assign it in a way that has them hanging on a cliff, so that they want to know what happens in that story.
Absolutely. And Francesca had said that her son had struggled with dyslexia and is now starting to read, but getting him that habit. I think this is great. You know, those cliffhangers and what's going to happen next. We all see it in movies, but books are even better, because then you're exploring on your child's imagination too, as they're thinking of all these ways that the book may take twists and turns in the future.
So if a child loves the book, let them read it again.
Yes.
And that actually is like, people, well, you already read that one. My dad would say that to me because I kept reading my books over and over again. He said, well, why are you reading that? You already read it. But it's in rereading that a child really savors the story. If they really like the story, reading it again is just a really great way for them to reconnect with it. If I have one child who has the same, he's got a series of books, and he's read them about 5 or 10 times. And if he chooses to read pleasure reading, that's what he's going to go to, is that series of books, because he loves them that much. And I don't say a word. It's okay. If those books are bringing life to him, then let him read it again. I read the Bible over and over again. I mean, we want to do that. Well, we want to read our living books over again too. My twiddlers love to reread a book because they are now familiar with the words, and they can be confident with that book. They can come at it with confidence because now they have mastered it. And so let them reread it.
Absolutely. Great reasons for that. Yes.
So read the first book in a series as a read aloud. This is a good way to get your children to want to read the next book. If they loved that book, then they're going to be motivated to want to read the other books in the series on their own. So at our book list, we often, there's lots of books that are series books. We put the first book in the series on our book list, and then I list, these are other books that are in this series, because it's going to, if a child likes this one, well, I want to go see what happens. I want to follow the story with the next characters in the next books.
Absolutely.
And it's motivating. So it's super worked for my kids to read the first one as a family, and then they're going to want to go read the next ones. Yes. And then coupling on top of that, read the first book by an author as a read aloud. So if an author, even if it's not in a series, but if you find an author that's really good, that your children like, read that, because they're going to want to go back out and follow that author and get more books from that author. And if they want that author, you just go to town and
absolutely.
Every book you can written by that author, because it's going to motivate that. I've watched my children fall in love with an author and feast on their other books.
Yes, I've seen the same thing happen in our house too. Great suggestions.
So this is a big one. Provide reading quiet times in the day. And this is something that you should do in the summertime too, not just during the school year. But set aside daily times devoted to just quiet time reading, even if it's for just 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. This was a lifesaver for us. My oldest twiddler, he needed quiet time because he's a people person. And if I tell him, go read a book, but there's things going on in the house, he's not going to look at the book. He's going to be paying attention to what's going on in the house. I call him a groundhog. Because he's constantly looking to see what's going on. But if you can shut the whole house down, and it works best if like you have little ones and you can nap time or rest time, and then you just give everybody, and in the summertime, kids still need that quiet time.
They do, yes.
And just say, okay, we're going to carve out from 1 to 2 every day, or from right after lunch or whatever, a quiet reading time. and just, this is going to be our time to read and nothing else is happening. Mom might take a little rest during that time because we need our rest. But other than that it's going to be a quiet reading time and nothing's going to happen. And that book hating child, if there's no stimulation going on, they're going to be more motivated to just eventually get into the habit of just even looking at the book, at least looking at it.
Just picture books even.
Looking it up, reading it, doing whatever. In the summertime, you should still continue to do that. But it is also really good. It's an excellent way to carve out your schedule during the school day.
Yeah.
On top of that, provide a reading nook that's just for them. This is your reading spot. Get a special bean bag or a hanging hammock or special spot in the house that they can decorate and make it quiet and private and designate it as their reading corner. This is where you're going to go when it's quiet reading time.
Yes.
But number 19, make sure that you don't have too much stimulation in that reading nook. You can't have fidget spinners in there. It needs to be empty of a lot of distraction. If otherwise it's going to be counterproductive. They're going to be so busy jumping around on their hammock. If that's going to be a distraction, then that's not going to be a good option.
Right.
You need to think about your child and what can we do to make this a peaceful, calm place that is not going to distract them, but that is going to draw them into reading.
Absolutely. So not the same as the calm down corner that we did a show on a couple months ago.
So then have them read for realistic periods of time based on their age and ability. Twiddlers are not going to sit and read for an entire hour.
Oh, yeah. No.
Unless you get to a point where they eventually are, and then they're not a twiddler anymore. A twiddler is going to read for 15 minutes, and that's a good win. 15 minutes, and then they can quietly color a picture if you've carved out a 30-minute or a 45-minute quiet time.
Right.
If they can read for 15 minutes, you've got a score there. And then have them read in short segments instead of one long one. So take a break, read a little bit, take a break, read a little bit, and that way you're breaking it up so that you're not. They're twiddlers. It's not going to be that easy. So you're giving them just short bursts, not long, steady. I don't expect you to sit down and read that book for that entire hour. It's too much. I don't care at what age. Twiddlers are not going to do it. So we just have to shorten our time and make it a little bit easier. Just lower our expectations, but still have expectations.
Yeah. And I think for some kids, you have to communicate that very succinctly, because they need to know what is acceptable during that time, and that if they do short spurts of reading a sentence at a time or two sentences or a paragraph and then need to take a break and go back, that's still considered reading, and to verbalize that and to reassure them that that's an okay way to start reading too.
So make reading in bed before bedtime a privilege. And we did this with our kids. We made this a big deal. Like, you get to read in bed. And so we got them reading lights, and no assigned readings. Never bedtime was the required book reading. The bedtime reading was fun books, just whatever they want to do. These were fun books. They were pleasure reading. These were the favorites that they're going to read over and over again. We had books beside their bed. We changed them out. And that, for my twiddlers, that has been a huge difference. Right before they go to bed, just read for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and then turn your light out. And they've got their little lights and they're putting it on there and they're reading and they're looking at their picture book, and then they go to sleep. And so we've always made that bedtime as a privilege. It's just a fun thing. And it's not required. It's not part of school. It's just a privileged time to read.
It's a great idea.
So, have the struggling reader read out loud. And this is a hard one. Because I have found when they read out loud to themselves or to someone else, they're actually better able to engage in the book. When they're trying to read in their heads, a lot of our struggling readers, a lot of our twiddlers aren't actually reading. They're looking at the paper, they're looking at the page, and they're checked out. They have no idea what they've read. It's a discipline to get them to read out loud. My one child resisted it forever. Resisted it. But I was really, really firm. I need to hear you. I need to hear you. I need to hear you. As time went on, it was the best thing I ever could have done, because it taught him to read. It got him reading.
Yes.
If I had left him to his own devices and had him reading in his head, then we were never going to get anywhere. We were never going to actually get past the I'm never going to read part.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As they're reading out loud, record them.
Yeah.
Record them reading. It's amazing how much fun they have reading a section and then listening to themselves reading it. They are making their own audio version of the book.
Yeah.
So just little electronic. I'm not big on electronics, but this is a good electronic. Record them and then have them listen to themselves, and then video them reading. This is another really good thing because it helps them see how they're reading, what they're doing. Have them read in different voices. Different
yes.
Have them hand it up with a Southern drawl or a radio announcer or Eeyore. Have them read it as if they're reading to a little brother or a little sister, even if they're not, and video that. Kids will get into that. They get into that kind of fun. So
yeah, make it more engaging and teach them just how to differentiate the different characters even by those different voices.
So listen to the audiobooks. Have the book open and listen to the audiobooks as they're reading along. I know that some people are like, well, that's not reading. For a lot of our twiddlers, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And for a lot of our twiddlers, that is how they're going to survive. That is how they're going to get through school, is through the audiobook realm. And in our company, we've realized this. We have a lot of kids that, they look at our books and they, I can't read that, but they can listen.
Yes.
And for a lot of our kids, listening is a good option. So have them read it. My kids, my older ones who were good readers, they still love those audiobooks. They love listening to them. And my younger ones, it's been the best thing to listen to an audiobook with the book open and following along has been just a really good, activity.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it helps them to engage with the book, especially if they're reading comprehension or they're trying to, still to work out the blends and decipher the words. Yep. Then at least they're learning the vocabulary and the sentence structure, all these things that audiobooks just naturally do. Yeah. And we have fights now over the summer. Who's going to pick the audiobooks for the summer trips? We're in that right now.
Number 27, read the book on a device. Okay. And I said earlier, unplug the devices, but sometimes for our twiddlers, a device is really helpful because a lot of times those words in a book are not big enough. They need to grow them. They need to make them bigger. And so on a device, they can engage with the device. They can move the words on the screen. It makes it just easier. Make sure that's all they're doing on the device. So if you just have like a Kindle reader, that's the only thing they're going to do on there is read a book. That's probably the best way to go. But I resisted reading on a device for years and years and years. And I have lately, because I have to travel a lot, I've gotten into reading.
You can't carry all those books with you.
Nope, I can't. And so I've gotten into reading on a device, and it's not as I like to have a book open.
I know,
but
that physical book.
It isn't the worst thing in the world.
Right. And for those students that need overlays too on the colors, they automatically, they're there. So that helps as well.
Read your own book beside them. If you come in there, they're reading a book and you just come in there and curl up next to them and read your book and they're reading their book, they're going to just melt into you and just start reading their book and you're just going to relax.
Absolutely.
And that's the idea. Number 29, read their book with them. Let them read a page or a paragraph or a sentence when you
reading.
Back and forth, stop and discuss, engage with them, react to what is being read. Read with different accents when you read with them. Share reading together, but take parts and use voices for the different characters in the book. That is a really fun way to get kids into reading.
Yep.
And number 31, of course, read to them. You're going to engage kids the most when you just sit down and read to them. Read alouds are often the best books out there on anybody's book list. The read alouds are the best books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Number 32, in the Charlotte Mason philosophy, they have a lot of narration. You have to narrate what you've read. Decrease that. Sometimes that gets overwhelming. My kids struggled with this. Even though they aren't writing it down, it still feels like a test and a book report all rolled up in one. We tend to soften narration, let them share what they want, but not pushing too much. If a child hates narration and reading, then you're doubling the burden on them. So if they really resist the narrating the book and they really resist reading, then you're going to have to choose your battle. And you're going to have to go with, okay, let's read the book and then find different ways to narrate. So one of the things that I did is number 33. I had children give a book review on Amazon.com.
Which is very short and sweet usually.
It is, but it's an under 13 category. So if your child is 13 and under, they can give an anonymous book report. And that was my two older sons' favorite activity. They loved knowing that other people were going to be reading their reviews. That was the coolest thing for them. It was a fantastic way for them to write a narration book report without feeling like it was drudgery. So they would go on there and they get to say, don't read this book, it's terrible, or I love this book, and give 1 or 2 sentences or 3 sentences of why they loved it. And I'm getting narration out of them. I'm learning that they've read and understand the book. Right. And they're doing it in a way that is fun for them. And Absolutely. That was, they made tons of reviews on Amazon for the books that they read. And it was, I just printed them out and then I had them. It was awesome.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know that they could do that.
Read on the go, take books wherever you go. Don't take the devices, take the books. Read at appointments, read at the park, read on a picnic. Make it a habit to always have books with you. Just a little box of books in the car, wherever you go, just make it a habit to have a pile of books.
That's a great idea.
And have your kids just grab and go. We're going to sit at this appointment. Let's look at the picture books. We're going to sit here. Mom's going to read to you. Just read on the go all the time. So after reading a book, watch a movie or play about it.
Yes, that changed their whole perspective. And a lot of my kids have hated usually the movie or the play.
I do too. It's a great way to do a synopsis and an evaluation of the movie plus the book. Or number 36, before reading a book, watch a movie or a play about it. And then while reading the book, compare and contrast the book to the movie.
Yes.
So, and a lot of times if we've read the book before and then watch the movie, we tend to hate the book, hate the movie. But if we've watched the movie first and then read the book, it's not as much of a hate. It's a little bit less of a resistance. Right. But, And number 37, go to YouTube and find a history-related video about what they just read. So, and there are tons, but you have to be super discerning. You need to watch every single video beforehand.
Yeah, every part of it, not just the beginning. Yes,
because it looks. I do Zoom online, and we show the kids videos. Just as a huge warning, I can't tell you how many times I have watched a video and I thought that it was a good one, and then they drop a bad word at the end, and then I can't use that video.
Yeah. Good warning. Yes, it's just so bad that you have to do that. But.
If you're in high school, read the Cliff Notes first. That's why they're there. Or listen to an abridged or unabridged version of the book so that you kind of get an overview of the book beforehand. Yes,
especially for those ones that are super complex and require a lot of understanding of the culture and the history and
Yep. And number 40, reward. If your child has read a chapter, reward. If your child has read a page, reward. If you finish the book, if they can answer 5 questions about the book, if they stayed focused, if they read the book for fun, reward. Find 1,000 ways to praise your children. Don't be afraid to praise and reward, and do whatever it takes to encourage a love for books. Yeah. The reward could be something as fun as watching a movie that goes with the book, or getting another book, or a piece of candy, or points for a big prize, or stickers on a sticker wall, or family movie night, or whatever you can do. Reward your kids for doing even the small, tiny steps. Reward them.
Absolutely. Yes. I think the thing that has brought me the greatest pleasure as an adult is seeing my kids order books themselves.
And if your kids are like my Mary, who are just barely readers or non-readers, you can still do the living book model. You just do the reading. You drown them in quality books and just read those books over and over again.
Absolutely.
And just have them enjoy them.
Yes.
So Rob and I write BiblioPlan, and it's super adaptable. We've made it super adaptable for the twiddler. We have an entire section of our website dedicated to how to adapt our material for all learning types.
Oh, that's awesome.
You can go right to our website, and there's a tips and tricks part. You can actually buy the ebook of it too, and it just gives you all kinds of ideas on how to take our books and make them so that you can get your kids reading and enjoying.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that, because I know there's so many curriculums out there that are just like, well, you get what you get. And you get it. After teaching so many unique learners, and I thank you for your willingness to share the things that you've learned on your website, as well as, with us on many shows. Julie has been on our show before, so I will definitely put links in of different interviews that she's done and all the resources that you have shared. And you do Zoom also?
Yep, we do Zoom online, and this is actually a great option for twiddlers. Because we have the kids read the chapter ahead of time, and then they come online and they get to review what they read in a very visual way. We watch videos, and this is where I do all my vetting of videos. We watch videos and we look at pictures and we discuss and we do all kinds of activities. I have a lot of twiddlers in my classes. I have a lot of students who just really struggle, but they can succeed because I'm coming alongside of them and just giving mom props and giving that child props for enjoying and immersing in the chapter in what they're reading. So
that's awesome. Oops.
So we are jam-packed with books. That's my last slide. You don't have to throw all those books out with the twiddler. I hope that I answered some questions. I hope that gave you at least one or two things that you could come away with and use as props for how to help your struggling twiddler.
Absolutely. That was a great list. And if you're listening to the podcast, Julie's website will be on the description, but it's also biblioplan.net. And so you can go to there, or you can go to the description and click on the link. That'll be on YouTube as well as the podcast. So thanks so much, Julie. That was welcome. A great list, and take a long time to work through that. So lots of options, especially during the summer. We like, having those extra options so that if one doesn't work, we can try the next. And maybe by the end of the summer, you'll have something worked out, at least a plan of attack on something that you can do to start building that habit of learning. I think that's the one thing that I think if you take anything away from this, watch all the slides and the ideas that Julie shared, but that it's a habit, and habits take a long time to build. It isn't just an overnight thing that we all of a sudden got the trick and the child's going to just all of a sudden just devour reading now. But it's a process and something that we have to keep working on. And it starts with us. I think that was the other thing that you had talked about that I really wanted to just reemphasize, is that we have to be the ones gathering the books, putting the books before them, and setting that example, and really the importance of it in the home. And when we do that, everything should follow over time. So yes, great stuff. And BiblioPlan is an amazing program too. So I just want to encourage you, if you're sitting on the fence going, what do we do for next year? Look at their products and see if that's a good fit. And so I'm sure Julie would be happy to answer your questions. She and her husband have devoted their lives into this and have a lot of experience. And so yeah. Well, thank you so much, Julie. This has been great. Do you have any closing remarks to share with our audience?
Thank you for letting me be here. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Have an awesome summer.
Yeah. Yep. So next week we will be back we're talking about different ways to approach different methodologies with struggling learners. And our topic next week is how to design learning experiences to support your student academically. And I'm going to be interviewing a young man that he actually teaches teachers how to redesign their curriculums in the schools. And he's going to share some insights of how parents can do that as well. So, and he works on different ways to approach neurodiverse learners. So excited to have Leroy on next week. So you'll want to tune in for that. But thank you again, Julie. I appreciate you taking time. And I know this is a busy travel schedule. So blessings on your upcoming travel as you continue to go to conferences. And you're going to be where next week?
I'll be this weekend. I'll be in California at the Great Homeschool Convention. So.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. And I'll be back here again next week, same time, same place. And actually, we have 2 interviews next week because then I am on the road and I have a guest host coming on in a couple weeks, Leilani Melendez. If you know her from YouTube, she's been on my show a couple times, but she's agreed to guest host my show as we dive into sharing our community stories for SPED Homeschool Awareness Month again in July. So thanks all for joining us. I'll see you again next week. And thank you again, Julie. Appreciate your time and your wisdom. Bye, everybody. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer.
Finding uplifting news in today's headlines is often like searching for a needle in a haystack. At the Story Behind podcast, we believe in the power of finding heartwarming tales and are happy to share empowering stories with you every week. Hear about how Steve Harvey surprised a dying man on Family Feud with $25,000. Get inspired by the note a waitress received from a patron dining alone. And even hear about how one VIP passenger made a hardworking pilot get emotional before his flight. To start listening to the Story Behind podcast, visit lifeaudio.com or search Story Behind on your favorite podcast platform.